If you look at most ethics codes in journalism, they basically, first and foremost emphasize the issue of truth and accuracy. Hello, I'm Professor Harper, and welcome to another lecture on ethics in journalism. In the Radio, Television, and Digital News Association Code of Ethics, it basically gives a variety of things, which I think crosses from text into radio, television, and websites. And so I'm going to use that one rather than the Society of Professional Journalists Code, which also deals with truth in its opening phrases. So, I mean, the RTNDA ethics code talks about facts getting in the way of a good story. Oftentimes we hear the cliche, the reporter didn't let the facts stand in the way of a good story, so basically overlooks some important information. And here I think it's good to note that facts are the cornerstone and the basis of good stories. Journalism requires more than merely reporting remarks, claims, or comments. Um, there are many examples. Probably the best one is during the time of Joseph McCarthy, the senator from Wisconsin, where reporters reported many of his speeches without providing any context about whether there were in fact communists in the government at the time in the 1950s. Um, so for every story of significance, there are always more than two sides. I think that this is really a key part of the definition of accuracy. Um, a lot of times students and even professionals will say, I have to get both sides of the story. Well, there are far more than just two sides of the story. The two sides are the extremes, and we see more and more evidence of the extremes shouting at one another when the solutions may be somewhere in between. Scarce resources, deadline pressure, and relentless competition do not excuse cutting corners factually or oversimplifying complex issues. Here's one for social media, which I think is an important one to keep in mind. Trending, going viral, or exploding on social media may increase urgency, but these phenomena only heighten the need for strict standards of accuracy. What happens is that in the first stage of a story, there's a lot of information that comes out, some of which may be inaccurate. And so, while it's important to have the information first, it's more important for it to be accurate. And a lot of people tend to forget that these days. Facts change over time. Responsible reporting includes updating stories and amending archival versions to make sure that they are accurate and avoid misinforming those who search or stumble upon outdated material. Here's one that I think that gets too little um, emphasis, that deception in news gathering, including surreptitious recording, conflicts with journalism's commitment to truth. That doesn't mean that undercover investigations cannot happen. It just means that they need to be the last resort. So first of all, you need to look at what you can get on the record. Secondly, what you can get under with public documents. And third, and only in consultation and making sure that you don't violate the law, um, that you then can consider going undercover. But there are a lot of ethical problems that can be created by undercover investigations. When I did them for ABC News, I always came home and took about 3 or 4 showers because I felt that I was really doing a lot of damage in terms of invasion of privacy for essentially the gotcha moment of journalism. We'll deal with anonymity of sources a bit later, but it's important to realize that using anonymous or confidential sources in legal terms can create a pretty slippery slope. And so that You need to be careful when you use them and when you need to stay away from them. Staging, dramatization, and other alterations, even if they're labeled, can confuse viewers, listeners, and readers. It You see this more and more when you see docudramas, things on television that are not news programming, and so you really need to be careful about using reconstructions. It doesn't mean that you can never use them; they just need to be carefully used. Ethical journalism refuses false dichotomies, and this is, the essentially reporting the two extremes. And we see more and more of this, of the two extremes, whether it's the liberal version or the conservative version, and we don't really get the nuance of various points of view. So stay away from what are kind of the black and white or the either or um, uh, two sides of things, and look at what the range of alternatives are between the two extremes. So, accuracy is probably the most important element of journalism. I think truth is a little highfalutin. I think that there are various definitions of truth, and absolute truth in journalism is hard to find. But I think that we can adequately debate whether a story is accurate or inaccurate, and so I think that you need to keep that take that into consideration when you attempt to be an ethical journalist or an ethical person. So thanks very much, and we'll see you online.